in that drop. Now that makes up 80% of our general fund local taxes, and the PST and the CST make the difference.
That 7.625 mills in 07-08 generated 11.4 million, and today 8.5 mills generates 8.1 million.
That's right.
That just shows you how much property values have decreased.
That's right. The PST tax, as you know, is a tax that everyone in the county pays whenever they use electricity, gas, etc., water. This tax, what it's done, has been able to, this and the CST, is it diversified our income level so that we don't have the wild variations that we had with your ad valorem, so you didn't have to continually increase your ad valorem. So what it's done is diversified our income. The only problem is, and Greg can speak to this, is your ad valorem currently is projected to be about 1% to 2% under where we were last year. Hopefully it'll flatten out next year and then maybe start a slow uptick after that. Am I about right, Donnie, in saying that? Hopefully. We're seeing some signs of bottoming out, but you know, that in real estate and projecting real estate is not a fine art. So but anyway, your PST tax, currently that tax has continued to, as the county grows, that we have actual revenue has picked up there, and what that goes to show you is it will continue to grow as the county grows. So it is a very good indicator of how our county is. Also, as the folks move in, the renters, etc., everyone is paying this portion of the tax. Your CST tax, and Greg can answer further questions about this, is $840,000. In our 5-year plan, we have actually projected that to reduce significantly over the 4 years and possibly completely go away.
Can you repeat that again?
I said in our 5-year plan we've reduced down our dependence on the CST tax because there is a possibility, a very good possibility, CST will go away.
So could you do something with that in this budget book about making a lesser?
I've started
estimate?
ratcheting it down, yes.
But it's not happening yet.
We're actually, this year I've lowered the estimate down.
This year?
Yeah.
Because of the legislature?
No. On your budget new dropped 10 grand, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking about. Is
right.
That we're ratcheting it down, but it's not being hit by the legislature yet. So it's actually going to be.
It will level out this year by active.
Communication service tax is essentially charged to all your cell phones. Most people, and it used to be that you'd have a house phone and a cell phone, and a lot of people now have gone to just the cell phone. So charges and 911 is being affected by this as well to a certain degree. Is they do away with the house phone and only use the cell phone, and so there's less tax base, if you will, for that revenue to be generated. Couple that with there's a lot of people going to prepaid cell phones. The CST tax is not charged on a prepaid phone because they don't know where the phone, what county it resides in, so they don't know what rate to charge. And so when someone buys a prepaid or refills their phone from Walmart or wherever, there's no CST tax. The phone companies, realizing that, don't like paying the CST tax or collecting it on behalf of the state. The Florida Association of Counties, and back in May, Davin Suggs with FAC did a legislative update. One of the things they're trying to do, have been trying to do, is try to somehow get the legislature to force or pull the phone companies into and the Walmarts and others into collecting that tax and figuring out how much revenue is being lost. He met with 2 of the phone companies, and they said, we're not really worried about what you do with the legislature because it's going to go away completely, because we're going to move towards all cell phones being on what's called VoIP, Voice over Internet Protocol, and there's no CST on that either. And so to Florida Association of Counties, the communication service tax is dead. It's just a matter of how long it dwindles away and goes away. And so we're going to have to wean ourselves off of that reliance, because at some point, and we already see the revenues starting to creep down, and that's why David's drop. We see the actuals already dropped a little bit, and our estimates for next year will be lower. At some point, it'll go away.
And the same thing...
And I don't know when. Davin doesn't know when. No one knows when.
To a lesser extent, it's happening to gas taxes too, right? Because more fuel-efficient vehicles,
Yeah.
people using less gas.
Yeah, but
so
I think the
states
the
collect
biggest
less
thing
gas.
here, though, is that the voice over internet protocol.
Right.
That's gonna shut it down.
Yeah.
And again, that's secondhand. You know, he's the expert more than I am, but that's the update that he gave our association in May. That the Florida Association of Counties is they're no longer really trying to drive the legislature towards, you know, very much like the tourist development tax being collected by certain parties that sell hotels and such. They're trying to do the same thing with the CST, and now they've given up on trying to go back, because it's going to go away completely.
How is this
So-
drop in revenue made up for in the 5-year plan? Just increases in...
It's offset with increases. Actually, our revenue goes down a hair, but it's increases in the ad valorem is kind of, but I've ratcheted it down considerably. I'm down $100,000 over a 4-year period.
Your 5-year
And that may be not aggressive enough.
Does your 5-year plan assume an 8.5 millage rate?
Hmm? Yeah, we're gonna stick to what we got, and the hope is, just like I promised from the start, is we've fixed a lot of stuff, we've corrected a lot of things, we're right at fund balance for the first time in forever. We have more. We've watched our
general
cash in our general fund. And the next move is, once we can get our employees a raise and sustain that, and be able to sustain that raise, which is, as you know,
Call it a cost of living adjustment.
cost
not
of
a
living
raise.
adjustment, since they hadn't had one since 2009, and be able to sustain that year over year, which is the trick to that. Once we're able to do that, then what I had promised the board at that time was to lower the millage. And that continues to be our focus, and we've done that, but at the same time, we're taking care of some stuff, but we still have, when I first came here, I think we had the total sum of probably about $10,000 for a facilities maintenance budget. And as you know, we got a lot of stuff, and we just couldn't. So anyway, we've taken care of that. We've taken care of a lot of problems. So anyway, I just wanted to go over the revenue, as that is the more important thing that we've got. As you can tell, the CST is a similar problem that the fine and forfeiture fund, the Sheriff's Department, has with ICE. Currently, with the jail bed revenues, it's got the potential to just go away. So we got to start planning for that, and that's what we're trying to do now, is we're scaling down what we're budgeting for, and at some point in time, it's just what do we do to make up an $800,000 hole? Now we don't have to fight that battle. I just think it's prudent that we go ahead and start scaling down our budgeting and start managing towards the inevitable. So, are there any other questions on revenue?
Yes. Are these interfund transfers long-term sustainable?
Yes, they're long-term sustainable. I would not have made them if they hadn't have been. And let me talk about that. The overall, once the dust cleared, and realize this number continues to move, so we can't rely solely on this number, because we're still getting some revenue projections in, and we're refining our revenues. Currently, there's $286,000 in extra in revenue over last year, what was budgeted for last year. Now, what that's made up of is $198,000 is interfund transfers, so some of the different funds that we are properly managing, and they're able to bring funds, they're able to shuttle funds into the fine and forfeiture fund. $87,366 of that is actually coming from where the PST, once you balance out what we gain in the PST and lose in the ad valorem and lose in a couple others, That balance out to about $87,366 for a total of $286,258. Of that, the sheriff's department gets the fine and forfeiture gets 50% of that, which is currently set at $144,000. It was $175. Now it's $144. But Mary Dean, that could go back up again based on how estimates come in. But they're getting assigned 50%. Tax collector gets 14%, which is $40,165. Supervisor of elections $9,345, and property appraiser $23,706, and the BOCC gets a $69,000 increase.
Where are you right now?
That's something I have. That's a revenue distribution. I didn't put that in there in your sheets because that hasn't been set yet, because our revenues are still coming in and we're still getting estimates, and that's just the breakdown of how that works. So just get you an idea of overall revenue. That's the overall revenue of making this thing work. And what we're hoping is, as the sewer fund, now that we've got a fix there, and hopefully, you know, we get it up and maintained properly, we can actually up that and actually bring some more money over and maybe start funding, you know, recreation and some other funds
But
with
on
that.
the same note, we're also taking ad valorem money to upgrade our lift stations, right?
That's right.
So that money is basically being transferred in, $65,000, and it's been transferred
No,
back.
the sewer fund is taking care of the lift stations.
Okay.
It's taking care of that.
So there's no ad valorem money being...
No, there's no ad valorem money going the other way.
Okay, is there...
Right now, the
Lift
only...
station rehab, where's that money coming from? From
Lift
sewer?
sta- is sewer. Yeah, right now, the only monies that are going to any other fund other than the fund they're in is to the fine and forfeiture fund. We transfer, and also to the constitutional funds, but we transfer to them, but the other funds stand on their own, and that's the way they have to work, because if all the funds stand on their own, it all works. If you got one down here and you ignore it and it doesn't work, you got to go back and fund it, and that's one of the, as I sent you guys, the 7 evils. What do they call that? The 7 evils of government finance. Is each fund has to sustain itself. It shouldn't be propped up by another one. So therefore, that's the way I'm setting these funds up.
Now, today, the fine and forfeiture is okay.
It's sitting okay.
Yeah.
It still needs some work, but it's okay.
So basically speaking, let's say they have an increase in businesses,
Mm-hmm.
their funds increase, so we build a reserve.
All that should go straight to a reserve. That's right, because they're way under fund balance right now.
That's going to our reserve that funds that. So
Mm-hmm. I know our reserves fund the general fund, which funds any of the funds. It's there to protect them.
Yeah.
But every fund though has to sustain itself.
Yeah.
And that's why we've got every fund is sustaining itself and working within itself.
The fine and forfeiture, as they stand, is okay. It's in dangerous position.
It's in a very dangerous
Yeah.
position,
But
yes.
we are creating a reserve to cover 2 years, 3 years of operating in the event it were to happen.
Well, we're not. That's going to be up to that fund, just like the sewer fund has to do the same thing for it.
In the event that there's an increase in business.
That's right, because realize we've created our reserves are for the general fund dollars and all the others, but mainly for the general fund to sustain us for a year period, or two couple of months. What is that, a quarter? I'm sorry, a quarter. So therefore, can we cover some of that? Yeah, but still, that's the reason I'm setting every fund up to where it has to. All those funds, anything that's saved, needs to go straight down, and that's what happens whenever they give you money and all that stuff. It goes straight back down to the bottom line of that
What kind
fund.
of reserve are you looking for in the fine and forfeiture fund?
What do you mean, as far as?
Their target number.
Well, right now that target number is very high, and that's something we've got to work with the sheriff's department on. It was set extremely high, and we've got to work with them on that number because it was almost unretainable. The problem is right now they're skipping along the bottom, so it doesn't matter at this point in time. But I would imagine it needs to be somewhere around $2.5 million, $3 million. Wouldn't you agree with that, Mary Dean? Anyway, you got to take ownership, as I said. It's their fund. We don't control it. So,
So, while you're on that fine and forfeiture, on page 19, could you go over that little set of numbers there on the 2014-15
Mary Dean, just
reserve?
take ownership, it's yours, you know it. I'm sorry, 19? Let me see your...
And that interfund transfer from the road department's sustainable too, right?
Yes.
Now, is our,
Excuse me, sorry.
when we do a refinance on our loans going forward in the,
Wastewater fund?
yeah, there'll be a circle, there's a positive to our side, of money we're not spending. So have you factored that into our system yet? Is that in this system?
That's in the sewer fund.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, so and that's a monthly expense,
Yeah.
and that goes into...
That goes in the sewer fund. Just like everything in fine and forfeiture, Mary Dean's fund, it goes down there. Everything into, you know, the solid waste, all that stuff just goes down. That's the way it has to work, is, when I say it, she's right, it's a county fund, but they're responsible for it. So therefore, and we're responsible for it, but you have to assign responsibility, and that's where I've assigned responsibility to every single fund. So, because then all of a sudden, people pay attention to it better.
If they're responsible, I mean,
Yep.
if you would say they were responsible for fine and forfeiture, but by the same token, they have no choice in what they spend in the fine and forfeiture, it's determined by someone else, is that right?
Not what they spend, no.
Pardon?
Not necessarily.
Uh,
Their revenues are subject to, just like ours,
Yeah.
are subject to fluctuations, just like the CST.
my understanding though, that they have to maintain a certain standard of
Sure.
people.
Just like we have to do the same thing in our stuff.
Yeah, but nobody watches over us, but us, but they have somebody
Sure,
watching over
sure,
them.
but they know what that costs, that's right. That's like running any business, that's
Well, we
what
can
you
fool
do.
around with our numbers.
Well, no, you just gotta manage you just gotta manage
I hear what you're
what you
saying.
got.
I hear what you're saying, but with all due respect, nobody's gonna shoot us if we move around on our numbers. In their case, if the guy comes in and does an audit on their numbers, and they're not maintaining the proper health facility or the proper number of security guards, they have somebody else,
Sure.
not countywide, that's watching over
Sure,
them.
but that's right.
Okay.
And I think
That doesn't keep you away from managing your fund.
I-
You still manage your business like real estate. They could come in and step in and audit your real estate license. That still doesn't keep you from collecting revenue and expensing stuff. I mean, that's no different than any business, anywhere.
Yeah, so we do have...
That's a good excuse, but it's no different than any other business.
Yeah, so we do have people looking over our shoulder also,
Yeah.
and as evidenced by spending down the reserves when we shouldn't have spent down the reserves in past years, and we almost lost control of our...
I think Jerry's point was, Jerry,
And I understand his point.
is that the jail has to meet certain state standards.
the
ICE
part-
has to meet certain standards
Yep.
to qualify.
Understand?
I think that's what he was trying to say.
Yeah, totally understand.
Yeah, and that's, I say, that's no different than any other thing. Yeah, it is strenuous, but at the end of the day, there's no, you know what I mean? There's not really that much difference. So anyway, let's move on.
Howard?
Page 19,
Page 19. You want an explanation of the reserves here?
yeah, reserves and the ending fund balance as anticipated in the 14-15 budget.
The general fund, 2014-15, we're anticipating reserving $344,670 for an ending fund balance in 14-15 of $2.3 million. Okay?
Now, if we incorporated, Howard, if we incorporated our positive fund balance into their negative target fund balance, if you look at the county as a whole, you know, if we do the budget like it used to be done, when the sheriff's department was wrapped up in the general fund, where would we wouldn't even be close to our target fund balance then, would we?
No.
Probably negative.
We'd still be $2 million, about $2.5 million away.
So, under the old standard, which was what we were under in 09-10, for example, we would be $2-point-something million below our targeted fund balance still.
That's right.
And you're adding $300,000 to the fund balance this year, even though the general fund target fund balance is okay. If you look at the county as a whole, it's still not okay.
Well, I thought that begs...
Is that correct to say?
That's right, and what that question that begs is, like I said before, is at some point in time, our general fund will be healed, which is almost there now. The problem is like Mary Ann will tell you, is, you know, we need to secure the fine and forfeiture fund. They're working on that now. They're trying to do what they can do, but at the end of the day, they're going to have a harder time getting there just based off of positives and negatives, because they can't cut to the level that they need to really get to that bottom line. So at some point in time, do we cut taxes, or do we take some of that money and transfer over in every year, transfer it into that? Yeah, yeah. And I think that's a legitimate, what you guys will have to determine at that point in time is, do you want to cut taxes, or do you want to transfer them over there for 5 years to prop the fund up, or whatever that is?
Well,
But I wouldn't dare do anything until right now, we've got, not only do we have the sewer fund, yeah, it's going to be fixed, the solid waste fund is skipping, and hopefully with this, we get some good prices in, we'll be okay there, but the fine and forfeiture is the big one that could collapse, that if we reduce revenue, then all of a sudden, that we're just exasperating the problem if ICE goes
I wouldn't
away.
use the problem prop it up. I'd say help
Yeah.
them build their reserve.
That's right, and that's right, and I've said that, I didn't mean it like that.
When they got cut loose, for lack of a better word, when
Yeah.
you formed the fine and forfeiture, how much was their reserve at that point?
What was that, Mary Dean? What was that reserve?
Your rainy day fund. When the fine and forfeiture fund was first. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was still lacking at that time.
Oh, yeah, it was.
Yeah, I know. Trust me, I understand.
Yeah, and we know.
Yes, that's the point I was trying to make.
That's right, and you're right, but you own it right now, so.
I was supposed, David, we own it, because if they can't make it, we own it.
Well, I don't think they want me to own it. That wouldn't be pretty. But anyway, let's move on. The building department fund will have as you know, we're trying to work actually to spin that fund down. Those funds are not transferable to other departments,
Are you
other
spending
funds.
it down?
We're working on it. The problem is, right now, things are picking up and doing so well that actually we've doubled our business. So therefore, we went down on prices and our business increased. It doubled. So therefore, we're making more money than what we really want to make.
Are you dipping into the fund balance at all?
This year, I doubt we'll dip into it, no.
Do we need to look at lowering the fees again then?
Yeah,
since
we're gonna
we
look
can't
at
use
that.
them for anything else?
That's something, we wanted to give this a little bit more time, see if this was just a blip.
Now, he can use those, James could use, or you could use them to buy trucks,
Gotcha.
buildings, stuff like that, right? You can
We're
use
buying
them.
software with it, we had to
That
update
has
our
to be for the
software.
build department.
We're buying a truck for the building department.
Salaries.
That's right, all that stuff, we're taking care of all that. We're fixing it up to where the building department is getting back into the 20th century.
Are there any plans on the table for a consolidation of the office buildings with respect to the widening of 319 and how it would affect the building department and use of those funds?
No, sir. We don't, we haven't made any of those plans at this point in time, so,
I would be slow to
yeah.
deplete those funds.
Yeah, I think, and you're right, that's something we need to think about, but at the end of the day, you know, we had, before we opened the community center, that was our fallback plan, was to actually go to the community center and operate the government out of the community center. Now, we don't have a fallback plan at this point in time.
You got land.
We got land, but
And the good thing about the administration
DOT will
building is
pay it.
it's ours, so if DOT took it, they'd have to pay us for
that's
it,
right.
right?
That's right. That's right. Walking down through the sheriff's fine and forfeiture funds.
Shape.
So, which page in our book do we go?
Go ahead.
That valued high and in good shape. That brings a good price.
Yeah.
It's a pretty ratty building.
Yeah.
But still, it's,
But it affects our whole complex.
that's right. That's right. It
Okay,
does. I
so-
mean, you're
so
right.
if we have to leave there it affects everything else around it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a possibility, there's land for sale behind it that we could possibly purchase, or was for sale at one time. Right now, we don't have the funds for that, but, you know, you could just move the complex further back.
Or you could relocate it somewhere
relocate
completely
it.
different.
That's completely different.
You put it in a landfill if you wanted to. Oh, yeah. Or the wastewater plant.
Anyway.
We need to plan to have all of our stuff in one place, everything set together where the people don't have to drive from one spot to the other. It's just somehow, and that's why.
Well, that's the reason the community center made a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
Well, it made a lot of sense. to me.
Right.
There's still 20 acres there, right?
Yeah, there's still 20 acres there.
Planning long-term.
But we've got a lot of activity there now, so I don't know how all that would work. Any other questions about the building department?
Could you just sort of tell us where you are as you go along?
Okay, the fine and forfeiture fund, sheriff's fine and forfeiture fund, the ending fund balance in 14-15.
19 still.
Oh, okay, we're still back there, okay.
Is, in here is projected at $1 million, and I think that's probably a little heavy, wouldn't you say so, Mary Dean, or you think it'll hit that? Okay. Yeah. So she hits that, they're doing pretty good. They are doing good. I'll give Mary Dean a fit, but they have done good, so they're getting there. Road department fund, we'll put $32,000 in reserves there, and our reserves at the end of 14-15 will be $566,151. And as you know, Randy, that's not a lot of money. You had to repair a whole bunch of stuff.
And is that dedicated funds also?
That's dedicated funds as well.
That could only be used in the road department. That would be something you'd use, say, if a hurricane came through and you had to emergency fix a road.
Emergency fix, and there's a whole lot of things, but as you know, we have to buy equipment out of that. We've got this year, we're buying 3 dump trucks, replacing the dump trucks. We're adding another motor grader, so we have 4 graders. All that comes out of the road department fund.
But not reserve?
Out of the road department fund, and we use some reserves for that.
You are using some reserve.
Because, and that's what I'm saying, because, you know, motor grader payments, huh?
That's dedicated
That's
reserve. We
dedicated.
couldn't just give that to Mary
No.
Dean to build hers up.
Oh, no.
Sheriff Creel's, I mean, not Mary Dean's.
That's right. She knows what it is. MSBU, $32,664, and $733,000 will be the fund balance there. But this fund is there's a lot of, the problem is here is there's a lot of equipment that needs to be replaced, and I think y'all all know that. We've got we need to build a new fire station for the Crawfordville area here. The one that's is in shambles. We've also got fire trucks. We've got about 20 fire trucks.
That's MSBU?
MSBU. And
can only be used for fire.
that's right, and the average age of those fire trucks are I want to say they're bumping about 12 years, and we've got some,
17.
17, okay. So, anyway, as you can see, that fund we're concerned about it as well. 1 cent sales tax, the ending fund balance there will be about $2 million.
Can I go back to that MSB? That's the average age, but say the one at Crawfordville may only be 3 years old. Are you
Right.
counting?
Average age of all the firefighters.
Are you counting all the ones at the volunteer fire department
Yes.
that are parked underneath the shed that are 1980 vehicles?
Yes.
But the ones we actually use are relatively...
No, no.
If you read in there,
Mhm.
over 80% of them are actually over 15 years old.
Yeah.
80% of all of them.
No. Ocotney Bay has a 1982 model. Smith Creek has a real old one that the volunteers now are saying they don't want to drive anymore because the front end's about gone. It's a bad problem, and that's the reason we're looking at ways to, this year I'm going to pull some money out of 1 cent sales tax to you know, possibly pay $100,000 down on a fire truck, because we've got to replace some fire trucks. 1 cent sales tax, they'll have a fund balance of about $2 million, and what that's for is to cover our monthly nuts that we have on, or for the courthouse. We're paying for the courthouse, as well as some,
When does the courthouse pay off, 17?
that pays off at the very end of the 1 cent sales tax, which is 17, yes.
Taj Mahal, we'll call it.
Yeah. And also, this is the road loan where they borrowed a bunch of money to pay a bunch of roads. That'll be ending That'll be ending, next year and the following year. There's 2 loans in there, am I right, Greg?
And that's really gonna bump up our road paving monies too, right?
Yeah, that'll bump up the road pay, and then we'll be able to do something. And I
least for-
say again, we do not need to go and do we do not need to borrow against that again. We need to just every year do something.
Ralph's gonna like that. Think of that.
Sewer fund, we'll end the year with a $407,622 fund balance. As I said, we had good meetings, and I had good meetings last Friday in Pensacola. We're on the way to fixing this fund and also being able to handle more sewer in the county, so we're doing good here.
Just so nobody thinks that we need to do a rate decrease because of that, we got a lot of stuff we gotta pay for.
We get a rate decrease, we will actually have to pay back $6.4 million in loan. Okay.
But I mean, we have lift stations in Panacea from the
Right.
'80s that I know,
Oh,
when I had
that-
Cleve's job,
Yeah.
constantly
This
failing.
fund is, we've got to spend so much in maintenance and maintaining of our system that, that's the reason I didn't carve off much, coming to our active general fund. We're so far behind the 8 ball.
In getting your money, you committed to a rate that would not
Yes,
go below.
yeah, that's one thing that USDA will monitor our rates, and that's one of the reasons, though, believe it or not, we actually got the $3 million grant, is we were properly looking after our business. We were saying we need to increase rates to try to catch up to this thing, and that's what we did, and that's where USDA said if we hadn't have done that, and our rates would have been down so low and they should have been here, they'd have never gave us the loan because we were not being responsible stewards.
We need more than maintenance on a lot of those. We need total replacement.
We've got that
upgrades.
scheduled. I bumped the maintenance up considerably.
Force mains need to be sized up, everything.
We've got an entire subdivision down there that's got to be completely, in Panacea, that's got to be completely redone.
The Silver Glen? I knew that was gonna
Completely,
happen one day.
completely redone. Gravity.
Every lateral, no, Silver Glen's on low pressure.
It's gravity.
That's not
Phase
that-
2.
Phase 2.
I would bet you $100
Not that old,
phase
is it?
1.
Not that old.
What happened to it?
Poor construction.
It's not bonded, is it?
Very poor construction. No rock bed.
Under the gravity?
Yeah.
Anybody living there?
We've shut it off right now. One person. Your solid waste fund, we'll have a $76,244 fund balance. This fund, as you know, we accepted bids for the closure of the
Landfill, Class 3.
Sorry. Landfill. Last week we had one bidder. We have we're going to put that back out to bid, and we've adjusted the timelines and adjusted some of the materials that are possible to be used to close the landfill, and we're going to rebid that. So hoping to with $1 million, look, we were looking at having to borrow $1 million. It was really putting it close to possibly having some general fund help.
This may
That's the
sound
reason
like
I got to try to get it south of $1 million.
This may sound silly to the general public, but Cleve, they couldn't just pave that thing over?
What is that slope, 3-1?
If you could just cap the thing with asphalt, that'd be the end of it, but anyway.
No, we've got currently engineered for a clay liner.
This is bentonite clay, right?
It's
What
just
spec?
it's just a SC, 10 to the -5.
Permeability was
Yeah.
spec? Okay.
Yeah, the rebid's gonna have a bentonite liner with spikes on it. So anyway, that gives you a recap of our fund balance. As I told you before, yeah, we've built fund balances up. We're in a much better position we are, but we still have a lot of places to go. The good news is every single fund is positive. Every single fund looks like, other than the solid waste fund, has a growth potential and has the potential to continue to improve. And that is, you guys need to be congratulated at that, because rarely is there a county where all of these funds are clicking.
Rarely is a county where sewer is paying for itself.
And rarely is a sewer. So therefore, we're doing our fiduciary responsibility and getting these things to where they work. And So everything is so far so good. We got, like I said, we still got a lot of hurdles to cross.
Is that it?
That's all the things I've got. Let's see.
Whenever you had up, I was on, see if any of the constitutionals wanted to.
Yeah, please do, please do.
Is there any constitutional officer that wants to speak on any department or anything?
To let you know, within our, right now, we're looking at CHP. One of the things that we need to discuss is I'd sent out an email asking for the possibility of using the alternate one in our CHP, which our health insurance, which would have saved about $52,000, but I suggested that, but then I rescinded that based upon more information that I'd requested from CHP, and I sent each one of you that information. Basically, the Tier 2 and Tier 3 prescriptions that were being written as a percentage was low. A lower percentage of those were being written, but they were higher dollar value. Come to find out, once I got the actual numbers, there is a considerable amount of our employees that use Tier 2 and Tier 3 drugs, and it's considerable. And so therefore, my recommendation was to leave it the way it is presented in the budget currently. I don't know if you guys have got any comments on that.
Let me say something about our insurance too. It's only gonna go up every year. For every dollar we give CHP, they pay out $1.20. We have a horrible loss rate, which, finding the root cause of that, I don't know what to do. It's always gonna go up every year. And they're gonna at least try to break even down here, I would think. And we're part of the only reason our rates are as low as they are, we're in with Leon County too, right? And the school board, the only reason we have our rates like we are is because we're part of a huge pool. If we had to stand on our own, and so we don't want CHP, we want United Health, we had our own plans, I bet our rates would absolutely skyrocket.
First year they'd be good, and after that they would blow up. Yeah. Yeah.
Do we have any analysis on our loss rate? Is it like across the board, or do we have a few catastrophic drains, or?
COPD was the biggest thing I could find when I checked into it a few years ago. I don't know if it's smoking, I don't know.
The problem that you have is a year to year and a half old data. Once you get it, and getting that data is not easy. They're changing systems now. I've asked for that very thing, and the problem is that the way, and I don't know, I'm not in the insurance business, but the way they explained it is none of their stuff is like, okay, I'm gonna go to the doctor today and it closes that case. It doesn't. It could stretch out 3 and 4 months, and they pull all that to get all that data in. We've asked for that data. They'll give it to us as soon as it's available. But as of right now, COPD was a big one, and there was a couple of others in there. But believe it or not, our average age is 31 years old, so you would think we would have a loss ratio much lower than what we have.
I see a bunch of pregnant county employees running around. And the big ones, like the ones we have with our veteran service officer, I think he said he was covering his wife's insurance. Same with Rod.
Vet.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's got to be, it's the sheriff's department, ambulance, which are high-risk categories, of course, and all the employees, right, that are make up this 1.2 loss rate.
But they don't get charged any more than we do.
No, I
as far as
understand.
insurance. That's right.
But does that loss rate include the school board, or is that just BOCC?
That's just BOCC and all the constitutionals.
And all the constitutionals.
Do the ambulances figure in that? Is that part of the
Ambulances?
cost? Is that part of the cost to that fund?
Yeah, if the insurance company pays for it.
So the insurance is, do we go to the doctor more often
I don't
than
understand.
someone else? Is
Whatever
that-
CHP pays for an ambulance call, that's factored into that loss rate.
Right. So, I mean,
Healthcare expense.
there's a lot of different things, there's a lot of variables of this that we're looking at and will continue to look at.
Do we know if the school board has a similar loss rate? Like, is it a regional problem, or is it,
It's each one is different. Each one is different. We have one of the worst in our combined area, one of the worst we've been told. But I don't know where the
I
school
mean, is
board
it something
stands.
that we have more smokers, we have more, you know, I mean, I don't know, is there some category, like if we compared it to the school board, are we somehow using more expensive services than they are? I mean, I don't know, just to see if it's because of
Yeah.
our area.
I haven't asked the school board. I will.
It would be the same services, I would think, because we're all in the same pool. Only thing I could, if lifestyle was,
How about
I
the
don't know.
deductible? Does that, how would that affect?
The current plan we've got is we've got two plans we could have went to, and the deductible didn't change in either plan. It was prescription drugs was where the difference was. It went in Tier 3, it went from $50 per prescription, that's the copay, to $100, and in Tier 2, I believe it went from 25 to 50, or something along those lines. And that was the difference between the two tiers that were offered.
It's amazing that, and you can check why they're going because you look at the drugs they're taking, and that tells you pretty much.
Right, the problem is getting that information. We, as Debbie can tell you, behind me, we drilled them 2 weeks ago for all the information you're talking about, and I got one little email that says, here's all I got. And, but it's a tough, crazy.
Okay, so sticking with this health for a while. So there's a recent report that looks like we won the Booby Prize right now. U.S. healthcare ranks last among 11 developed nation, report says. And what we are is we're at the bottom of the rung of other countries, and there's a reason for that. We spend twice as much as the United Kingdom, who's ranked number 1, and we're ranked last on our results. And it's about not having the will to face up to these insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies. I know we as a county can't do that, but we should take a look at you know, I'm very upset that, you know, our employees have not been getting at least cost of raise or CPIs. But I think that as the county absorbs these 8% plus this year health cost, that we should at least develop the figure of what that means as a portion of, if we didn't absorb that, what it means to that CPI, because we're really giving our employees something every year that we're absorbing this cost. There's a lot of people out in our community who don't have insurance. And so I think that it would be good if staff could develop that number, see what that 8%, 8.1% this year is going to mean as far as...
$220,000, right?
There was, well, actually to us, about 100,000 on the BSCC side.
You're saying like per employee, like an employee may be getting a 1% increase because we're giving them a 8% increase on their insurance.
One of the things
Exactly
that I was
right.
going to bring up to you guys is what I've been talking with finance about, and actually Brandy, this was an idea that Brandy and I discussed, was in the future, in order to give our folks a raise, is I think
Cost of living.
is a cost of living raise, is to cap the county's contribution each year at whatever number we pick, say it's 5%. County will cover 5%, and if it rolls up, CHP charges 6%. We go ahead and give the employees their COLA, if we can afford it, but yet they cover that 6% because we've got, understand, we've got, not every employee is covered by our insurance, okay? We have a bulk of them are, but not every employee. So every employee that's sitting there without their insurance, they're sitting and suffering because, you know, we can't give a COLA because of health insurance. So we've actually, and there's actually a study on this that that Brandy found, is that it's actually cheaper for the county, and we can give our employees a raise if we pass those along, and we just set a spot where we said anything over this, the employee will have to pay for that, have to contribute to that, then we can afford to give that. That's something we got to give more thought about.
You're talking about the person whose spouse has insurance, therefore they're not in the county insurance, so this number that you're wanting to look at would be something they could have theoretically received for a pay increase because they didn't receive it on their health insurance side.
Right.
What would
Do-
an 8% figure, how many dollars would an 8% figure?
That would change person by person, right, what you was talking about?
Yeah, that changes according to what the, family plan, et cetera, is according to what it is. If it's single, the county right now picks up, the BOCC, each constitutional officer, they may do it differently. But the BOCC currently, we pick up all but, I believe it's 1 or 2% on just a single coverage.
Just as an
If I was
average.
just going, but then natural on a family and a spouse, that number goes up dramatically.
Just a ballpark average, what do we pay for an employee's insurance? On a ballpark, you don't have to get it perfect.
Hmm?
A family plan, or?
Well, let's,
David took
Yeah,
my book.
yeah.
what is it?
Hold on.
Page 12,
Yeah.
yeah, that's some notes there. And while you're looking at that, do we all in our county, under our county government constitutionals here, do we all have the same plan, or are there different plans? And are there more expensive plans out there, or are we all under the same insurance plan?
We're all under the same insurance plan. It's just each constitutional may pay for their employees differently than what we do.
Okay, okay, so maybe you should explain what we
Employee
do.
contribution may be differently, may be different. Like right now, a single plan, the BOCC contributes $532 a month for single coverage. That'd be like just me, and the employee pays $4.60.
500 a month, that's 512, 6,000 a year, and an 8% on that would be 4,800. So if we contributed a full 8%, it would go up
$480.
$480. So that would be, if we didn't do anything, the employer would have to pick up the.
Well, it doesn't go exactly like that. It's all, that's the simple way, but nothing simple in this.
I'm sort of a simple person.
Right. The employee plus child, the county pays $760 a month. The employee contribution is $152. And realize this is just the BOCC. And employee plus spouse is $885. The county contributes. The employee contributes $189. Employee plus family costs the county $1,307, and the employee contributes $304. That's 14-15 rates.
Are y'all pretty much the same?
Okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all about the same. But each constitutional kind of,
What I'm saying is the sheriff's department isn't offering free health care for every employee and family there. That's the point I was trying to make.
yeah. But like I say, that's up to each, I know each one of them do it differently, and you'll have to talk to each constitutional about how
As
they
an
do it.
example, if the average employee was making 40,000 and you did a 2.5% COLA, that'd be $1,000. And if you had an 8% increase on a family plan, which is a 10,000, that'd be $800. So the insurance would be $200 more than the COLA would be.
Yeah. But anyway, one of the reasons I was looking at that $50,000 is and going to that other tier was my thoughts were initially that, hey, we can set aside a bank if that number of tier 2 and tier 3 participants is say 20 folks, and that made up a very small segment in money. It'd be cheaper to set aside a $20,000 fund and pay that difference and not go to the 50, not spend the $50,000 in CHP.
It's all academic now.
That was thought, but that's all academic because that
We're not
number
gonna do
is
that.
large. So now it's better for us to go, and we'll get larger through the years.
A lot of that's preventative medicine, apparently, from what people giving certain prescription pills for their children was what I was told about.
Mm-hmm.
you probably do have some of that now within the med clinics. They can go to the med clinics, and there'll be more of them. I think CVS has one now, or is it CVS?
CVS has one.
CVS has a med clinic, and there'll be probably 3 or 4 more shortly. So, and they can really get seen in the med clinic without taking a tent and spending the night. They're seen pretty fast in those. And probably 90% of the problems they have can be accomplished there.
Yeah, one of the things that also we're going to be handing out Thursday, it looks like Teladoc is going to, actually Brown & Brown is coming through with Teladoc, where it'll be a free service to where our employees can talk to a doctor, talk to a physician, and they'll be able to diagnose up to a certain level, but write prescriptions, etc., that naturally they're not going to write codeine and stuff like that. But instead of having to go for an ear infection, you can dial a doc.
That should be.
Yeah.
Can we do that for a lawyer too?
So while we're still on health, do we have a line item for We Care?
For We Care, yes.
I think
Okay.
it's 5,000,
Okay, and have we considered increasing that any? It's been like that for a while.
They only asked for 5 this year, Howard.
I know, they're very timid. Do you see the amount of services they provide our county, our citizens?
I know, but it's. I mean, we can do it, but if you guys want to do that, we can. It's just
Just
everybody
support-
everybody wants more.
You mean like giving them 6,000? Because they talked to me too.
I just was wondering.
That's up to you guys. I put in what they had
I think
requested.
Howard's point is we get a huge return on investment
We do.
for that. And that's, a lot of that's taken, I think what Republicans in general feel is shift a lot of the burden to the private sector instead of having the government take care of people. It's my understanding how the Weekend Network, they refer them to physicians, the physicians volunteer to take care of the person instead of sending them to an emergency room and having Medicare or Medicaid, whatever, pay.
Well, the point is, a lot of those people wouldn't be cared for, period. There would be no one stepping in there if it was not for these volunteers.
Until they got to the emergency room situation where they're...
Even with the emergency room, people can show up at the emergency room, and if it's not life-threatening,
You know a lot more about it than I do.
yeah, if it's not life-threatening and it can be temporized, they're going to receive a lesser form of treatment. That's what the whole two-tier system that's developing in the United States is all about, and why we're having all these problems. We're getting to a two-tier system where, you know, I volunteer at these clinics, and I see these cases that leave the emergency room, and one morning, I had 4 patients. Each patient had been seen in the emergency room, temporized, told to see their orthopedic surgeon, or an orthopedic surgeon, given the name. When they called up that office, they said, yes, your first visit, make sure you bring $300 to $400. Well, it might have been, you might have told them $10,000. It didn't matter to these people. They couldn't come up with that money. And that's the system we're dealing with right now. And We Care steps in there and provides these doctors that are willing to do it
For free.
for free.
Well, like I said, I've researched into this issue. If you want to suggest bumping that up a little bit, I would go along with it.
Well,
But
your suggestion of whatever it is, another $1,000, I think would be greatly appreciated.
I'll suggest it then, if nobody else will.
All
That
right.
doesn't mean we'll go along with it, but, because they really convinced me when they met with me.
It's a good group.
Yeah.
Good group. Okay. Yeah.
I got a yep.
Yeah, I'm good.
Look at this. Look at
Yeah.
this, Howard.
Okay,
Look at
well,
this.
cool.
All right.
All right.
$6,000 for We Care instead of 5.
Got it.
Got that, Brandy?
We can do that.
Yes, I do.
And you can take it from wherever you want to.
Yeah, other increases, retirement increase by about $115,000 just for the BOCC. We have, that's a state mandated, the recent changes there.
How much money did that save, just out of curiosity, a couple of years ago when the employees had to start contributing? Did that,
Said, I don't know, Greg, what was
did that save us any money? Or did it just save the state money?
But other than that, that's the major increases. The future major increases also will be the new our new Medicaid percentages is coming out, and hopefully Commissioner
share.
Thomas he's gonna be on FACT's executive board, and that'll be one of the things they'll be fighting with tooth and nail.
Meeting with Chris Doolin tomorrow also with the Small County Coalition to stay on top of that. And then the Board of Directors with FACT, we're meeting on Thursday and Friday of this week. So that, from what I see, that's a big issue that's on the horizon that we have to stay on top of.
Y'all meet in Tallahassee?
Pensacola.
You gotta pay to drive yourself there, don't you? I still commend you for doing that, Ralph.
Most of your county problems in retirement is they are upside down in the retirement fund.
No, our state retirement is in good shape.
Oh, okay.
State of Florida is the model for everybody, but the legislature tries to keep messing with it.
What happens if you go to a 401k?
That's an option for the employee.
That's what I chose.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to very much discourage defined benefit plans and putting everybody in defined contribution.
Well, that's what they're trying to do, but right now Florida is the best funded.
Yeah,
best
but I'm
funded there
saying
is.
that they're moving forward, they're trying to get people on 401ks
Yeah.
instead of
Investment.
pensions.
That's an individual decision of each individual
That's right.
person.
That's right.
So a couple other areas. Do you have more?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
That's up to you guys.
Okay, so, animal control, library.
I know you were going to say that.
Love it, right? Library also. So,
All right, here's what we're doing in animal control. We increased animal control this year because, as you know, Chad is no longer with us, and we were not able to find a taker for that building. So, number one, we had to correct an overtime problem. Every year we've had an overtime issue because it's hard to predict call-outs, etc. So we bumped up overtime some.
What page you on?
14.
Oh, I'm sorry, Randy.
14.
14. So, but one of the things we did add money in here for was adoption services on a very limited basis. This was the idea here is that we have the facility that Chat was located in. We still have to pay for that facility. It was the county's facility. We were paying those funds. Therefore, I put some money in for a small-scale adoption center, just for the main thing of testing, use a year to test out and see whether it really makes sense for us to go into that business or not. And at the end of this year, we'll fund a small-scale adoption service. At the end of the year, if it makes sense and we all like what outcome is on it, then we can either choose to move forward with it or keep doing what we're doing today. But that's what was added into the budget.
And today, it's farmed out to different.
Today it's
food
farmed out.
scanner.
That's right. And we're getting quite a few folks that want to come and adopt we can run it with our existing staff and volunteers. We're going to be moving to this building, moving to the new building, move animal control there anyway. So it seems like a logical thought process was to go in, and it's almost like a test market. Test the market, test how we can do it, see what its true costs are going to be on a small scale, and see what kind of reaction we get out of the market. Then we can run that for a year and see how that works and make up our mind what we want to do.
The test is costing how much? $30,000?
The total test itself is $10,000 for adoption supplies, $2,000 for donation supplies, and let's see what else we've got. I think that is pretty much about it. The rest of that was overtime that had to be corrected, and then health insurance hit us heavily.
So are you saying put an additional $30,000 in their budget?
I put additional $13,000 in for adoption services.
So what is the $30,271, and then plus an additional $16,000 for the revenue?
No. That's in that number. That's
Okay.
right. That's right.
Randy, I heard you just saying that even though the budget increased $30,000, it's offset by $16,000 in revenue.
That's right.
Correct. And the remainder of that increase is what David was talking about. We had some overtime issues that last year were not going to be exactly where they needed to be, and fuel as well, I believe, was
Yep.
something in there. So there was a few operating expenses that also need to be adjusted, so.
so there's also Was there a contribution thing where you're expecting to receive revenues from contributions? And I'll tell you what this experiment is going to go to, because I think I've explained before. We do not have the numbers to run an animal adoption center in the black. If you looked at CHAT over the past years that CHAT ran, and you see what CHAT put in, we can almost anticipate that this will be where our county is heading. It's about a $40-some-odd thousand number.
Loss, you're saying?
Yes, yes, yes.
Whereas the way we're running right now.
Let me just,
Yes.
it's money that, and the way CHAT was able to overcome this, is that people had stepped up and left when they died. They left money to CHAT to perform animal adoptions, okay, and take care of domesticated animals. So with that, at the end of the year, with all of CHAT's fundraising and all of the $20-some-odd thousand that they raised throughout the whole year, they would put in another $20,000 of this money. And you know, the statistics are, if you're in a county like ours, if you're in a county of less than 100,000 people, this is not going to work. I mean, the numbers are out there for all to read. So I think we're going down a futile area.
What's the solution?
Well, we changed policy by going into the adoption business, you know, and then when we had that workshop, we heard, you know, there will be all these volunteers, and people would, we would bid this out, and people would step, you know, other non-profits would step in there, and they would bid on this thing. Well, it's not a thing where people know this is not an area that they can afford. I mean, anyone that's run this type of operation knows that this is going to be a drain, and a significant drain if you want to do what CHAT's doing. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do this. I'm saying that the county has to expect, if they want to do this, that they're going to have the need to put into this animal adoption center about $40,000 a year.
And right now, I thought the plan was to let, like, the Cousicans and the people
Well,
like
that's
that
what
handle
we're
the
doing right now.
adoption.
That's
Couldn't
their-
we just say, when somebody comes to animal shelter and say, I want to adopt the animal, give them Connie's number, or?
Yeah, and that's why we can continue to do that. It's just, we're right there. We've got the facility, and we were just wanting to run a small, not a large scale, nothing like Cause I Can, a small scale adoption out of that, just to see what it would like for a year, and then if it made sense and we were acceptable with, now we think it's going to be a
Why
money
do that,
generator?
though?
No.
I mean, the goal to me, as we said in that workshop, was to prevent animals from getting euthanized.
Right.
And do it at the least cost. If we can do it at zero cost, which means let other agencies do it, and they're doing a good job, why don't we just keep doing that?
We
instead
can,
of-
we can do that.
Instead of us
It's
trying to
just-
get into it.
It's just my staff and Ivanhoe was very passionate about wanting to start this, and had some very compelling arguments as to why to start this. So I'd like for her to come and talk to you guys.
I mean, I would think, you go over there any time, there's animals there, so they're not all being adopted.
That's
You
right.
know, so that's probably part of the problem, but
Yeah.
we still have to have
But I would
somebody.
like Ivanhoe to come and talk to you guys before we make a decision, one way or the other, so that she can talk to you. She's much more versed.
To
in
Howard's point, if this goes from a bench test to a full-scale adoption center, we need to know what that number's gonna cost.
Well, yeah, but we
Decision.
have no, and we're not anticipating doing a full-scale
You said
adoption center.
existing employees could do it there?
Existing employees and volunteers, yes, that we have currently. Now, to give you an idea of the increase, there's in employee, between employee salaries and cost of doing business from an employee standpoint over last year. This includes health insurance, taxes, retirement, et cetera. There's a $10,000 increase in animal control, okay? Then the $10,000 that we were speaking down below for adoption services, plus an additional for the donation and other current charges was $3,000. And then we had a fuel increase of another $3,000. So, and then there's some others trickled in there. The telephone, we bumped it up a little bit. So that's your $30,000 increase. And only 13 of that had to do anything with the with the adoptions. And of that, we had offset that, not knowing, we had offset that at of $10,000. And while we're diving down into departments, one of the departments that
What was the other one Howard asked about?
yeah, what was the other one, Dr. Kelly?
Library.
Library.
Do you want to know where I'm going with the library?
Yeah.
Okay. So, library. So, I think we continue to, so I'm on the Friends of the Library. And the Friends raises money. Traditionally, the Friends raise money to do special things. They need computers, they want to do something, put a new table in, or fix up that room in the back. Special projects. But what's happened, especially when the county fell on tough times, is that the Friends ended up becoming a
Revenue source.
And I think that we should try to, just as we've done everything else, is trying to have it really sort of stand on its own, so that the Friends can really do their mission as doing special projects, that the county step up and include in their budget what it really is needed to fund the library. And also, the statistics of our of what we get back, even if we left the Friends in, I think we'd be a lot better off funding it a little better, because if you look at the other counties that are in this Wilderness Coast Public Libraries, Wakulla County, is not a slacker. But if you take Jefferson County, which gives 207 funds, 207,924 last year, it got 143,617 in return, additionally from the state, where we only got 81,000, and that's based on a lot of formula and stuff. But if we fund our library better, we will get more revenue from the state. So I would like that to be looked at. It may not happen this year, but I'd like us to start looking at that and wean ourselves off the Friends.
How much more than $22,000 does the Friends of the Library generate? In other words, are they giving every dime they raise to the operating?
No.
Okay.
No.
And are you proposing to remove all this at one time, or just...
No, I would like us to start thinking about and moving in a direction that we can...
This budget year or next budget year?
No, I'm just putting it out for discussion.
Understood.
Right.
I agree with your point.
Y'all don't scare our new library director of library, Miss Rebecca.
No, we're not trying to decrease. We're trying to increase it, but
I think
in a
Howard's
different way.
point is well taken. The Friends of the Library take their own time and their own to raise money, and really, I think that they should, have a larger hand in deciding how it's spent instead of just going towards operational.
Yeah, it goes into the general fund.
Well, and I agree with you, and that's good. But at the end of the
You gotta
day,
plant trees.
end of the day, we as I was telling you, we got CSD that's more than likely going to be going away, and
But they're
gotta
doing
watch
this
it.
out of the goodness of their hearts. They
I
could stop
understand.
doing it
I
tomorrow,
understand.
right? And stop raising for the
I understand.
library at all.
We have that a lot. We've got volunteer firefighters that do a lot of fundraiser. We've got Coalition of Youth in our community center. We just talked about animal control. We got a lot of areas where people that are passionate about it help fill in. Obviously, there's never enough to go around that we can fund them the way we'd like to.
Yeah.
But
And I don't think Howard was...
But we're not asking for funding. We're just asking that let the Friends go back to their mission of doing the special projects, and the county should take on the mission of funding the library.
So are you saying increase the amount that we're giving to increase the amount of
Yes,
money we're giving to the library?
That becomes so we can wean ourselves off the Friends.
Not this year, though.
Right, correct.
The only reason I'm gonna throw it out there. I just throw it out on the table. The only reason I was asking that because I know tonight you have an agenda item about reducing reducing 175,000 in revenue,
Correct.
but you're proposing increasing. If you reduce it, you got to fill it up somewhere with cuts.
Yeah.
But so you're contradicting what I was just.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just asking.
I
Just
asked
clarification.
clarification is, I didn't ask for
But
$30,000 for We Care. I was very content with one, okay? So just like on the Friends, we're out there supposedly doing special projects, okay? We are a significant revenue source for the library. That is something that needs to be corrected. And, you know, if you want to play politics, that's one thing, but, you know, I don't see any inconsistencies in what I'm doing.
Well, since the cat's out of the bag, let's go ahead and talk about that agenda item later. It is directly related to the budget.
Okay.
I'm not going to support it, simply because,
Well, wait a second now. This workshop was supposed to be dealing with the budget.
well, this is the budget. If we're going to cut revenue...
Well, that
that's-
becomes an agenda item for the meeting.
Howard, I mean, I think that's directly related to that. It's like setting the millage rate is not having to...
Well,
not
I think we'll
something-
have that discussion when we get to the meeting.
Well, I think it's completely appropriate to have it now, to be honest with you.
Well, I don't,
It's a budget workshop, and that's a revenue source for the budget.
no, and it's revenue or not revenue, depending what board action is taken.
If the board did vote for it and the 175,000 got cut out, where would you suppose making it up?
You know, we get back to this again, and I had a workshop on animal control, wanted to discuss the budget, and that was turned into I love animal control, and that wasn't the purpose of the workshop. Our job is not to tell constitutionals where they cut or not cut. Our job is to set budgets, okay? And that's what I'm suggesting. We set budgets. We set policy.
Okay, this is the budget workshop again, so, I mean, you don't want to discuss it now?
Discuss what?
The cutting of the PST.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll discuss it twice then.
Well, we could...
I think what I've heard tonight, I was unaware of what was happening with the CST, and I will pull that item from the agenda. But the PST will remain on the agenda. And I think it's doable, and I think we owe it to our citizens.
You don't think it's more appropriate to cut the millage rate rather than that?
Well, you know, these are two different taxes. One tax, the millage rate, and I know people are upset that people own a house that's valued at $25,000 and therefore they pay no taxes, supposedly. Those people are, for the most part, struggling. That's why they're living in a house that's valued at $25,000 or under. Everybody needs to turn on that electricity switch. Everyone needs to turn on that water tap. Everyone needs to have fuel to heat or cool their homes. All of that now is being taxed at a rate that was set initially. And, you know, I've spoken for lowering that tax. Other people, when they ran for office, spoke about lowering taxes. And I think that it needs to be looked at, and you know, I'm not asking for the world out there. And you know, one time I had it for elimination of that tax. I reduced it to a 2% decline. And looking back on it, you know, we possibly could have negotiated something there. I'd like to see something negotiated this time.
Well, I personally, the thing I like about it is that it diversifies our revenue source, and that everybody pays for it.
Yep.
And what we're leaving out of that also, I don't know how much an average power bill is for a small home that's $25,000 value, but the first $50, as you know, of your power bill is exempt from it.
Right.
And say your power bills, I know Charlie Engel, for example, he doesn't pay a dime on this, because he doesn't use a lot of power at his house in Smith Creek. So if your power bill's $100 a month, and you get taxed on the $50 at 7%, I don't know what is that, $4? $4 a month. And I understand, Howard, it is, and I think you even said it, it's a gesture more than it is a real impact to someone's budget. And I understand that. And I'm not going to support it. I didn't make any promises. I promised that I thought I'd spend the taxpayers' money wisely. Is all I promised. I didn't promise to lower taxes or anything. So I'm going to stick with the budget we have. We got a lot of things we need to pay for.
Yeah, and I think from the board, it is a gesture. I think for many people, it really affects their lives. So I think there's two sides to that. I think for many people, that $4, that $5, that really affects them when they're struggling, food, medicine, what do I buy?
And another thing I don't particularly like about it too much is it may benefit that one family $1.50 a month, but do you realize how much it cuts what St. Mark's Powder pays? You just make a 1% across the board, they pay $100-something thousand a year.
They pay $300,000 a year.
$300,000 a year. So if you're saving this family $1 a month, you're saving them, what, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month.
And that is a different philosophy on taxation, I guess, and I'm for lowering this.
I don't know what the rest of you guys...
I'd say if we could find $200,000 worth of tax cuts, I would cut the millage. I would take it out of the ad valorem. Not opposed to making a cut. We're already operating on less money coming in as it is, but I would apply it toward the millage first.
On an individual basis, I was just wondering how much it would actually affect the individual homeowner. You know, like if we were to make the cut, Commissioner Kestrel was mentioning, would it only affect the homeowner $1 or $2 a month? You know, versus taking that much amount of money out of the budget. On our end, we would have to find somewhere to that's a pretty big hole to have to fill.
Well, yeah, we know what the 1% dropping it from 7 to 6% will reduce it by. The numbers are there in your agenda item.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it differs from
as a whole.
My
Yes,
power bill's $500.
but I'm saying, as far as when you throw out a number like, well, $300,000, you know how much that's going to affect. You know, I don't have those numbers, but I certainly know what 1% decrease in that tax will do.
I'm not going to support it, but just if you do in the future, if it gets to that point, what I would suggest you possibly think about is, instead of saying 1% across the board, say increase the exemption to 1,000 kilowatt hours instead of 500. That way everybody saves the same amount. I'm still not going to support it because I want to be consistent with the budget, but if you do bring it back up again,
Okay.
think about that, because that cuts St. Mark's Powder's bill $3.20 a month, and it cuts that single-wide trailer $3.20 a month,
Yeah.
too.
Well, and that's good for discussion. That's great.
Well, and I think it'd be good to see some real-world numbers. I had a gentleman call me
Never
up
mind.
last week with his water bill, and he wanted an explanation of why his sewer bill is higher than his water bill. And I went and sat down with Nanette, and you know, she brought me up to speed, and then I went and talked to him. But we need to do the same thing with this. If there are that many folks that are really affected by this, let's take a look at how much they're paying in their PST and the CST. Then let's take a look at how much they're paying in the ad valorem tax. You know, the last time I really dug into these numbers, just ad valorem tax, the average citizen was paying something like $343 a year, and 70% of the population was paying less than that. And so, you know, I think if we look at those numbers, we can find out, are there that many people? We all think we're overtaxed, every one of us. We all want to pay less, but when we look at those numbers, and, you know, are we really?
Let's also be mindful of this, too. The least fortunate citizens among us receive free garbage service, and they don't pay the $75 MSBU like everybody else does. So it's not like we're not making efforts to take care of those, the seniors, the people on Social Security, the poor. We are making efforts to take care of them by, I pay $196 a month. A lot of people pay $0 for garbage service because we have decided as a board that that's important to us. So I don't want to frame this, Howard, so much as that we're not thinking about lower income people, which we certainly are.
Sometimes it's just not obvious. I had a citizen a week or two ago that had a complaint brought to me, and you know, was upset and said, "What am I paying my taxes for? What am I paying for? You know, this problem needs to be solved. What am I paying for?" I said, "Well, let's take a look." I pulled up her taxes. When I subtracted out the school, subtracted out the garbage, subtracted out the fire, she was paying $10 a month in taxes. And so, I mean, is she not getting $10 a month worth?
Is she married?
You know, And so that's the thing, is sometimes we've got a disconnect in what we think we're paying and what we're really getting as a result of that. You know, when I brought her to that, I mean, surely she knows that when she drives down the road, she's getting $10 a month. When she calls the deputy or calls the ambulance, that's worth $10 a month, easy, you know? So it's a matter of, we need to look at real numbers and not just the concept.
Could we go back to the budget for a little more, since we have a little more time?
Sure.
Okay. So, question, do we have employees making less than $10 an hour?
Yes, and I have those in here, get a 2% pay raise. Employees from $10 in the $10 range.
Okay, so
$10 below.
those specific employees at that
We have
end of the
7.
spectrum?
We have 7 in the BOCC, and
What
I
about
asked,
constitutionals? They haven't...
I asked them, and I didn't receive anything from them. They have part-time, so this is full-time.
Full-time people?
Yeah, we're the only ones with $10 an hour people, or less.
Less, yeah.
Those
Okay.
are commissions.
Sure, sure.
And I'm just looking at it from a perspective of someone earning a livable wage. I don't think, personally, I think it's pretty tough to raise a family on $10 an hour in today's economy. And I think we as a county have a moral obligation of at least providing our full-time employees with livable wages.
Let's not forget about the health insurance we pay. I'm not...
No,
I agree.
Totally. But I think that when we look at raises, we should be looking at that lower end of the spectrum especially.
I came across something I noticed that our auditor has never brought out in previous years, and maybe there's nothing we can do about this, but we're paying our auditor $81,000 a year. That blew me away. Seemed like we could have a full-time person audit our books 40 hours a week.
It's got to be a single, what's it called?
For less money than that.
Single what, something audit?
Single purpose.
We
Independent.
can't get that done any cheaper than $81,000.
Last time we bid it out when I first came here.
We bid it.
Remember Mark
Bid it,
Payne
and that
used
was
to do it?
That was a low guy.
I mean, how much is he making per hour? Do we have any idea? What does it
Not
take
as much as an attorney.
to do it? He's got to be making more than an attorney.
I think he spends
He
here,
works
how
on
long, what's his, how long?
2 weeks?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
So he's making $40,000 a week?
No, I don't think. I don't think we're counting the support staff. The point is, y'all have bid it out how many times? I remember we went to 2 or 3 auditors.
Since I've been here, and it's also, I think it's up next year to be bid next year, so
We
we'll be
can
going
look
through
at-
this.
Hey, I'm not saying he's not doing a great job, but that really surprised me.
What did we pay Mark Payne's group, you remember?
You talking me?
No.
Oh, Greg.
$5,000 break this year.
I could do
He
that.
actually cut his bill $5,000.
I would
this
do
year.
that too if you paid me $81,000.
It's a firm though, right? It's not a guy,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
How many, if you send that out to bid, how many people respond?
Well, you can't
We
bid
had
it.
last time 4 or 5. We had 4 or 5 auditors respond. And you might find somebody who get the price lower, and Mary Dean can speak to this as well, but they may not have the support staff to be able to actually do the audit that is required for our county. So you've got to hire somebody big enough to be able to do it, but also do it within a reasonable rate. So, right. So, but when we bid it out 4 or 5 years ago, we had a couple 1-year automatic renewals.
Mhm.
We have done that, and so this next time we'll put it out for bid again and see what
I'd
the
like
price
to
is.
at least try. And
You're not gonna get it cheaper.
No.
I'll almost bet my next paycheck it will be more.
Really?
Yep,
They know.
Yep.
They know they got a racket.
guarantee you.
That guy's already nervous as a cat, too.
Maybe he was hoping we wouldn't figure this out.
Do you have any more questions? We got about 20 minutes to...
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, on pages 26, 28, and 68 in the book, oh, you don't have your book?
No, sir.
28,
28, 26, 20, 28, and 68. Just need corrections.
Oh, okay.
Hold on, Howard, you got me interested now. 26.
The map,
I've already updated.
Good deal, Brandy.
Oh, is this the districts?
I think it was 26 in my book.
Richard's got half the county.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, I'm still chairman.
Yes, sir.
And can you put our cell phone numbers as our primary contact number? I would, yeah.
Me too.
I don't think a lot of, this is not gonna be bedside reading for a lot of people, but people find it.
Are you kidding? Donnie Sparkman, he wanted the first copy to come off the press.
You better change the picture too, 'cause it's got me sitting up there at chairman.
I already got it.
Well, you referenced that page, didn't you, Howard, 28?
Yes, I did.
Well, I think all in all, we're sitting in a good position, but I would just caution you as your CEO or CFO, whatever you want to say it, is reducing revenue at this point in time, since we're not quite where we need to be, is not advisable, since we haven't been able to take care of our employees, and we've taken care of a lot of things, but we still, for many years, the county punted a lot of stuff down the road, and it's like I call a lot of things, you got to take care of blocking and tackling, and there's a lot of cost out there that we still have not, a lot of issues that we still have not addressed with the county property and county facilities, that if we continue to not fund it and kick it down the road, it's going to cost more later on, and come back, and it's going to come to a decision point as to what to do, to cut a service out or raise taxes or whatever it is. And at the program that we've got now, the plan that we've worked out is we're able to sustain it. We don't have to increase our existing millage. We don't have to increase the PST or the CST tax. In the general fund, we can continue to operate. We've got as we've talked about, the fine and forfeiture fund needs to have some funds brought in for reserves to make it healthy. And then once we get these things taken care of, that's when we look at it. But then we also look at what is the effect of today, but also how does it affect 5 years down the road? Because we've gotten in trouble in the past, that governments have, in making decisions today and not looking at 5-10 years down the road. So I would just caution you in your
I was wrong about the 1,000. You can't have them correct me. You can only exempt the first 500 kilowatt hours. It's a good idea, but apparently legally you can't do it, right?
Just have the 500.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. So, and then, okay. You know, as far as the revenues and our county administrator, and I just applaud the county administrator for the work he has done on budgets that I have seen him work on. We differ in some of the philosophy, in some of the specific situations. But one of the things that we're really good at is saying that we can't reduce taxes because we need this to be there. But we're not as good as saying, you know, where do we have to really pull back still? And, you know, I might be in the minority. I still see frills, and when I see frills in a tough time, then, and I'm not going to spell them out. But if no one else see frills,
I'm going to ask for
you
a
know,
specific example.
no one else see frills, then of course it's not going to fly. But yeah, I see it.
And,
So-
and without belating the point too much, again, I just ran some numbers from 09-10, which was the first year I got here, to this next budget year, and I'm not politicking, this is just a workshop. Property taxes have gone down $2.3 million. The overall budget, including the property taxes and CST, has still gone down, what was it, $770,000? Even if you look at all revenue together, if you took the roll-up rate from 09-10 to today, in other words, we operated on the same revenue then, I mean today, as we did then, same revenue, and you only had property taxes, the millage rate would be 10.5 mils.
Right, and that makes the assumption that everything that we're doing now is vitally essential to the thing.
You're-
And, you know,
you're right.
Right,
You're right. I don't disagree.
and our government should be providing our priorities. We provide the safety and health of our people first, and then we do what government can do that private people can't do. And that should be our priorities. But when we start going into areas that private people can do, I think we have a problem.
And again, not to belay it too much, but there's a little fine line to that. Could we save money by keeping the fire department in a metal building out of the sheriff's department, not building a fire station? Sure. Could we save money by not doing landscaping and therefore not having to maintain it? Absolutely we could do that. But there's also a certain quality of life, and I know it'd be weird to hear this from a Republican, but I was a Democrat not too long ago. I think government does have a purpose, and one of its purposes is quality of life. Could we save money by not having boat ramps? Absolutely. I've heard people come out and say, I don't want to pay one dime for a boat ramp because I don't have a boat. Well,
And they don't now.
Well, if you take that same philosophy and apply it to schools, I don't have kids in school, I shouldn't pay a dime. Well, I think the overall good is worth it. I understand what you're saying. Is there somewhere money can be cut? Sure.
You're speaking to the choir.
Okay.
I don't think there's a department that we have that I haven't heard someone say we could live without that, or we can scale it back, you know? Maybe with the exception of roads. I don't hear too much of that on the roads, but some people say, I don't need a boat ramp, why are we paying for it? I don't need an airport, I don't need a library. I mean, it goes across the board, so kind of what you're saying, that it's a matter of, you know, certainly it's easy for us to make cuts if we decide we're going to live without something.
We have a plan. We have a 5-year plan. I'm going to stick with that 5-year plan because it's the first time I've ever seen this board have a plan. And Howard, you've been around long enough to agree with that. But we actually are looking forward into the future, and I'm just going to stick to the plan.
And I agree with Mr. Edwards' development of that. It's very good. His Greg James and Brandy and Mr. Edwards with the budget, excellent. I still see where there are unnecessary things that we can eliminate.
If we don't have anything else, we'll go ahead and adjourn the workshop. We got 15, do we have any other constitutionals that would like to speak, or anyone representative? Ma'am? Oh, go ahead.
What about citizens?
Yes. Any citizens?
She's got a list of cuts, I say.
I appreciate all the positive things I've heard here this afternoon. I did have 3 concerns that I wanted to address with all 5 of y'all while you were in the same room, and they're regarding the fine and forfeiture fund. The first one being is, why is the sheriff's office being asked to take responsibility of a county fund that the sheriff has no control over? And this has bothered me probably for about a 3-year period, and I have a different perspective of it now that I've spoken with the county auditor, and I urge each of you to talk with the county auditor regarding this, because there is a fiscal responsibility that the county has for all of the funds. The sheriff has no control over the revenues that are allocated to this fund. It has no control over the expenditures that are approved out of this fund, nor does it have control over the use of the cash balances that are currently going on to fund ongoing operations.
Mary Dean, you said you have no control of the expenditures. What?
Had no control over the approval of the expenditures.
Approval of, right.
Yes,
But
the
you
approval.
have control over the amount of expenditure.
The sheriff's fund, if you want to refer to the sheriff's fund, it would be the amount that you allocate in September to the sheriff's office for the budget. And then from that point, we take it, and the sheriff's office has control over those funds for a 12-month period. And I hope that we have proven to you that we are very fiscally responsible with those dollars that are allocated to us, along with grants and contracts and any other special revenues. Those are the funds that we have control over, and those are the funds that we take responsibility of.
Is that the same way that property appraiser's office runs and the tax collector's office runs?
Yes.
Okay, so you run the same way they do?
Yes.
Okay.
We just want to be treated like any other constitutional officer. We don't want to be treated any differently because the fund has been created. Also, now that the fund has been created, it kind of gives the general fund a false sense of security that we've got all this money because now all the problems are over here with the sheriff, and the sheriff's going to take care of these problems. And I see us kind of going in a backwards direction because we're kicking
some cash forwards down the road and not dealing with them. Had we been all together, I know that the 5 of you would be addressing and not funding ongoing expenditures with cash reserves in your general fund. You should not do it with the fine and forfeiture fund either. This is your fund, and these are your reserves. Secondly, why has an unfair allocation of revenue deficits been allocated to the fine and forfeiture fund? The sheriff has no control over what or how much revenues are allocated to this fund. In the past 2 years, this fund has taken on a $750,000 decline in jail bed revenue and an over $200,000 decline in property taxes. Why has that taken place? And thirdly, and most importantly, why is there no justification for this allocation of revenue deficits? You are requesting cuts of the WCSO because we need to live and breathe within our funds, but there is no justification for it. We have conducted an internal review of all our positions. We've conducted surveys, and we've compared ourselves with other county sheriff's offices our size. We have concluded that we are not overstaffed. We're not overfunded. Our ratio of law enforcement officers to county population is so low that we receive national recognition from the U.S. Department of Justice, and we were granted funded for 3 new officers in the prior year. We have welcomed the county to conduct an independent staffing study. As of today, there has been nothing that's in the process of that going on. I think it's unfair to ask the sheriff to live and breathe in an environment beyond his control, and it's also in direct conflict with his responsibility that he has to the citizens of the county. I appreciate y'all's time.
So what's the fix? If you could wave the magic wand, how would you set it up?
I had a feeling you were going to ask me that question.
There's only 2 ways to fix it.
I think that before a budget is constructed, you need to look at everybody as a whole first and base your decisions on that. And when you look at the fine and forfeiture fund, look at it as a subcomponent of the general fund, maybe general fund A, general fund B, and don't treat it any differently because it's the sheriff's office fund. And I think there should be attempts in order to move some more dollars over in that direction. I don't think a $250,000 roof should be paid out of a reserve that needs to be set aside for failing jail bed revenue. I think that's where the county comes in and pays for a county building.
Yeah.
There are only 2 ways to fix it.
Well, I think hopefully you know that we support the sheriff's department. We certainly, worked hard to get a little bit more money to you last year. Against David's advice and against Greg's advice, and so at least me, and speaking for me, I'm certainly all in for the sheriff's department, but we're all dealing with declining revenues. Is there a solution as far as saying, we've made a commitment, right or wrong, some people agree with it, seems like to me most people agree with it, to not raise taxes. That's been my commitment, so we've collectively made that commitment, so that means we have to live on what we have. Is there a percentage that is correct, that if revenues go up and you're set at a percentage, you're going to get a larger portion of the pie. If revenues go down, you're going to have to live. Is there a number that we could all be comfortable with and just say across the board we're going to all share in the gravy, we're going to all share in the belt tightening?
Absolutely. And that's no, we would love to do that, and that's what we fought so hard, even though it was not our fund. And really, that's what the auditor said. He said, it's their fund. If it goes under, they have to bail it out. It's their issue. It's not your issue.
Right.
So in terms of trying and working with David on getting a fair allocation, that was not an issue of mine.
Well,
and
right
so I
now
feel much better now that I have backed off on that. But we should all share in revenue cuts, and we should all share in...
We know if we have $5 million in reserves and you have 0, that ours has to flow into yours.
Well, sure, and if jail bed, if we want to make an attempt to reduce jail bed by $750,000, where I read the budget book and there's no mention of that anywhere, that's a great feat that you guys have done. That's not what the sheriff's office has done. That's what you as county board members have done. And I would I would plaster it all over the book.
Have you talked to the constitutionals about cutting their budget?
That is not my responsibility.
That's ultimately what would have to be is the clerk.
Well, I think ultimately it boils
These guys would have to cut, and we'd have to cut to fund them higher. You raise taxes.
No, we cut $400,000 this year. When you say fund them higher, our budget has gone down. The money that comes to us has gone down, and if you take a revenue source that's declining and replace it with additional revenues, which, you know, thus pulls it from another area,
I think the
it has
general
not changed the sheriff's office budget at all.
Well, I think the general fund, before I got here, cut 700-something thousand, and the sheriff hadn't cut anything. So, therefore, if you want to, that's what we're talking about. But here's what happened before. The sheriff's department was hiding in the general fund. They were hiding throughout. So therefore, what we did is say, let's bring it in so we can account for it and everybody can see the transparency. If they don't want to be transparent, that's fine. But if you see the transparency of here's the positive, here's the revenue they bring in, here's the expenses. That's what it does. It takes it out of being hid all in the general fund over here, and it pulls it out and says, bam, here's what it costs to run the sheriff's department. Period, end of story. And that's what the sheriff's department doesn't like.
So can we come up?
That's untrue. I don't have a problem with that.
The point is everybody's responsible to their fund. And yes, is it a county fund? Yes. Just like the sewer fund. But we've assigned it because they control it. At the end of the day, I don't approve anything that comes in and out of it. That's the sheriff's department that approves it. So therefore, yeah, it is county fund, but you're responsible for this. You make sure this fund works and protect the citizens. It's real simple. It's not hard. And you got X's, you got revenue, you got expenses.
We are not a business. We are not a hotel business that is failing.
They've got a big accounting staff. They can't figure it out. We can pull it over and figure it out. But that's an easy thing.
Well, what I'd like to see is if we can come to a number, and I don't know what that number is.
I mean,
but
we've got 50%.
If we say, okay, regardless of how big the pie is, 49% is going to go to the sheriff's department, or 51, or 52, whatever that number is there some number that we can all get to and say, regardless of how that budget grows and shrinks, we're going to all be in that percentage?
Yes, that
To
sounds
me,
very fair.
That makes our job easy.
And I don't understand what she's arguing about, because you're getting 50% of the revenue right now.
Remember, Ralph, if that number's higher than what it is now, you gotta go to these guys right back here and say, you need to cut.
And when things get better and the...
Well, we can establish a percentage for them too. I mean,
Well, I
There's
don't...
only a certain amount of money to go around.
I think we...
love Mary Dean. I love arguing with her, which I
Well,
never-
I do
basically-
too.
don't ever argue.
I love to argue with Mary.
Basically speaking, there are two parts of you. There's your sheriff's department, and then there's ICE. The sheriff's department is, in this budget, the sheriff's department is happy with this budget. You can live with this budget that we
Well,
have.
if you are happy cutting the sheriff's office $400,000 with no justification,
But are you living, can you live in the budget that we have? I guess that's...
yes, but more than likely we'll be coming next year and asking for some of these positions back.
I can assure
Okay.
y'all aren't gonna solve this next
Yeah,
4 minutes,
yeah.
so if we take a bathroom break.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Go.
All right, let's go.
Adjourned?
We adjourned the workshop. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's that?